of Florida State Seminoles Live. This is your show for Florida State football talk each and every Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time. You have arrived here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. This is where we deliver the best in discussion, debate, and analysis with the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry, and, of course, analysis from myself. Jason Parker, the lone one standing this week from Chop Chat, despite in the words of Jason, a near monumental win against Louisville, Jason. Very impressive.
I mean, the way this season has gone, it was the classic, let's blow our halftime lead. Let's come back. Let's make it look dramatic. Let's make it for the smallest home crowd since 1983. We'll talk about that later. But I was actually kind of pleased with the fact that this team was able to fight in the fourth quarter. Granted, it was Louisville. Granted, it was Scott Satterfield, your ACC Coach of the Year in the preseason. You were high and mighty about him in the preseason, but I mean, Willie Taggart proved why Willie Taggart is a top 5 coach in the ACC with a fourth quarter comeback like that. Thoughts, comments, concerns?
Yeah, to check my coaches' rankings, they seem to be a bit skewed in the perception of some.
Well,
but considering where Florida State is or should be as a program, not where they are, but where they should be as a program versus Louisville, I am very much standing on my selection as Scott Satterfield as a top 6 or 7 coach in the league based on what Louisville's shown us thus far this season.
A big win over Eastern Kentucky and Western Kentucky, and then losing to Florida State. Yep, top 5 coach in the ACC right there.
Well, you can't beat Louisiana Monroe by 1 point in overtime when they're not on the schedule. You can't do that. It's just
you can't. It's hard. I mean, it's hard to both beat Louisiana Monroe by a missed extra point and then fourth quarter comeback after blowing a halftime lead for the 4th time. That apparently is how we're going to do things this season. It's just blow a halftime lead. You can't do that unless you schedule the games.
We'll start with what's most important, and we'll start with most optimistic is, as you mentioned, it's a win. And it's a win after coming back from behind. It's a win after your starting quarterback did not play well, for the most part. Didn't put the points on the board, 11 of 14, nothing wrong with that. And Alex Hornibrook coming into the game. So that would have to be the storyline to get us started, Jason, would be Alex Hornibrook, 15 of 20 for 255, 2 touchdowns, and leading the fourth quarter comeback with 2 touchdown passes on 2 drives to lead the 35-24 win.
It was a very different feeling in this one, and it was a very different feeling for the FSU fan base. I think most of the FSU fan base, and you could say, are we a little overconfident after beating Louisville? And I've said that, yes, Louisville, they were a 2-10 team last year. They've already matched that win total this season. This was more of a statement win because when James Blackman went out with the injury, the thought was, okay, how can Alex Hornibrook handle this situation? We've seen this story before. FSU was up 21-0. They blew that lead. They were down 24-21. Okay, how will FSU handle this? Alex Hornibrook looked like somebody who, if need be, if he is the one who does start this one against NC State this week, and we'll talk more about that situation as it goes on, he instilled that confidence that he can get the job done, that he can run a Briles offense. Now, once again, it was Louisville, but you did like seeing the fact that both the offense under Hornibrook and the defense were solid enough that if I'm not saying this is a team that can beat Clemson, this is not a team that can beat Florida right now, but this is a team who can beat Miami. This is a team who can beat NC State this week. Team that can beat Wake Forest. This is a team that can win 8 games if Alex Hornibrook plays this well.
Jason Parker, Chop Chat. You got to join him and the rest of the staff there doing their chop on a regular basis there, win or lose, covering Florida State football. And, of course, we are right here each and every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock Eastern time. So want to remind everyone out there your availabilities and opportunities to help build the channel and build this show in particular.
And can we also point out real quick, if you're the person who stole Logan Robinson's laptop, that's why he's not here this week. Shout out to Logan Robinson from Noel Game Day. Please give the man his laptop back. The man's a college student. Okay, he spends all his money on beer and women in Tallahassee. He needs his laptop. He needs to save his money. The man's going to be graduating soon. Give the man his computer back.
What a sad set of circumstances. People stealing laptops out of cars.
I had a friend in college who was an RA with me who had the change stolen out of his car. They didn't take anything out of the car, didn't take the CD player or anything. They took the change that was in the change holder. I'm not going to say alcohol was involved, but alcohol was involved.
Unless there was a hell of a lot of change, like coming out of a slot machine nonstop or something out of that dashboard.
It was like $4 in pennies. I mean, penny pitcher night, it's good stuff, man.
But we're missing Logan tonight. Logan Robinson, Noel Game Day, joining us on a regular basis here on Wednesday night. So Jason is going to pick up the slack, carry the load, shoulder it, do all those cliched things to help us bring it home with Florida State Seminoles talk tonight.
Beware. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, when you get more time and we don't have any buffer there between the two of us, it can be a bit dangerous.
There might be this might get a TV-14 rating today. There might be some parental discretion advised. That's all
on your side.
On my side, obviously.
On your side, absolutely. So no Logan this week. We hope that he finds his laptop or the police or the authorities or just a bunch of money is dumped onto his head so he can go replace that. And we welcome him back next Wednesday night. Of course, the Super Chat is on. You can help us build the channel with the Super Chat. That's available to you as well as, of course, the standard contributions of liking the video, subscribe, share, and of course, your comments both in the live chat and down below in the description section, where you can grab the link to the Voice of College Football community and all the exclusive content that I provide there each week, including my predictions, which will go on. We will not go back and look at last week's predictions necessarily. We'll look at the entirety of the season. I'm still proud of that, but last week was a bit rough.
Who are your friends here? We shout out to Allie for Eli. Excuse me, I apologize. We appreciate you for watching us, but the ACC is awful. So Satterfield is probably a top 5 ACC coach. I don't understand. Taggart did nothing. His staff did give credit where credit is due. Taggart, once again, we've talked about this before, and I feel like I'm going to say this every single week. Willie Taggart can do no right to certain members of the FSU fan base, to certain college football critics. This team could finish legitimately. Things could happen. This team could finish 10-2, and Willie Taggart would still be criticized. Willie Taggart has more to overcome than any other coach that has coached FSU before and may coach again afterwards. And there's a variety of reasons, both on the field and off the field, for that. I'm just saying, let's let this season play out. This season could easily end up being a 9-3 regular season. This season could end up being 6-6. We will not know until the second half of the season, because we know right now, this team right now is a favorite over NC State, and we'll give our predictions later, but I do think FSU will win this game in a close one. And then they're probably going to get murdered by Clemson in 2 weeks after the bye week. So the question is going to be, how is the second half of the season going to play out? And if they do end up getting upset this week by NC State, where does the panic mode begin at that point? So that's why the second half of the season is the question. Mark asked Jason, how does FSU plan on stopping Miami in Tallahassee? Well, we're a better team than Central Michigan, and we virtually have the same color scheme, and they only lost 2 by 5. So I think we'll win by easily a touchdown. Shots fired.
You're going to have to do that without Jaden Lars Woodby. However, certainly in his time as a high school recruit, one of the most sought after players in the country, made his way to Florida State over USC and Ohio State, and kind of a converted safety linebacker with a ton of speed. But how do you make up for his loss?
There's no sugarcoating it. This one hurts, I think, more than Joshua Kando being out for the season on the defensive line. This one hurts because of the fact that Jaden Lars could be that hybrid. He can play in the secondary. He could play up at linebacker. He was playing more of what's called a star position, playing more of that linebacker, but being able to platoon back and forth. This once again goes back to something we said at the start of the season, how I've said that on the defensive side of the ball, the biggest question mark is going to be the linebacker position. The fact that there really is nobody there. And the one guy we talked about all preseason, Dontavius Jackson, has been playing immature. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. He has been playing immature this season. He has not been the bona fide senior leader needed. Jaden Lars Woodby is somebody who could play that position. And now with him being gone for the year, that's going to be the question. Who steps up? Do you get guys, like Amani Gaynor from the Tallahassee area? Who is going to be that next man up? And this is where I think, and this is the problem facing an NC State team that is a good passing offense. This is an NC State team that's averaging over 30 points, a game, each game so far this season. This is going to be the question. This is why I think it's going to be a high scoring game this week. And this is going to be the question. Who is the next man up? Who is going to step up? Mark question, Jason, tell Jason this is not a statement win. No one is saying it's a statement win. And I'm a diehard FSU alum, and I've been a diehard fan all my life. No, I am not sitting here shouting from the rooftops, yeah, we beat Louisville by 11 points. Am I pissed off that we blew another lead? Yes. Am I expecting us to blow another lead against NC State? Of course I am. But at this point, once again, a win is a win. There's no win-loss, ugly win category. This is a win-loss, a very good fourth quarter win. So the question is, can this team build off of this? It's talking about building momentum. Yes, it's beating Louisville. And I knew that that's going to be the first thing critics were going to say. They would have said that if we had beat Virginia. If we had beat Virginia, the first thing was said, oh, it's just Virginia. It's not, oh, it's a ranked Virginia team on the road. It's, oh, it's just Virginia. This one's going to be, oh, it's just Louisville. If we beat NC State this week, oh, it's just NC State. That's the way it's going to go because the ACC is having a down year. It's been a down couple years. So, no, I'm not saying this is a statement win. I'm saying the way it was won with a fourth quarter comeback, a solid fourth quarter comeback, not just getting the one touchdown to win 28-24, getting that second touchdown, the run by Cam Akers. That's where this was a solid performance in the way it happened. And this is where it will hopefully build momentum going into NC State and going into the rest of the season.
Florida State beats Louisville 35-24, going up 21-0, getting behind in the fourth quarter, coming back and winning the game again by 11 points over the Cardinals to lift their record to 2-2, 1-1 in the ACC. All right, let's get back to our initial storyline, Jason, because we just touched on it and then we pulled back onto some other things as Mega Jesus is God brings it up right here about no, actually, it was somebody else that I lost track of.
I don't know where we are playing
somebody else. We lost track of their comment, but anyway, it was directed at the quarterback situation, in which I've seen Alex Hornibrook play a lot of football. I've seen James Blackman play quite a bit of football, and I think they're very comparable for different reasons. I think it would be difficult to debate that one is clearly better than the other. But based on what you saw in the fourth quarter last week, based on what you know about both quarterbacks, I got a two-parter for you, Jason. Who would you play? Who would you start against NC State? But who do you also think that Willie Taggart is going to start?
Wow, that's the $1,000 question right here.
Only $1,000.
Only $1,000. We'll up it as the hour goes on. I'm going to start with the second part first. I do honestly think that the way things are going, the fact that in his Monday press conference, Coach Taggart was adamant about saying that James Blackman is day to day, that he is day to day with what Noel 24/7, the Tallahassee Democrat, have called an MCL sprain, and he was very adamant. He's day to day. He's day to day. He's day to day. That's giving me indications that I think that James Blackman is going to end up starting this game. I think that. So that's your second question. To answer your second part of your question, I think James Blackman will be the one, if he is healthy, if he passes whatever protocols, the coaching staff and the sports staff give, I think he will start the game. That being said, to me, I do think he should start Alex Hornibrook. Not because I think Alex Hornibrook is the better quarterback than James Blackman. If they're both healthy, if they're both 100%, I start James Blackman he's my starting quarterback. I don't think he has played himself out of that starting spot. I don't think that he played himself out in this Louisville game. And that's what I said last week. I said, I think the only way you give Alex Hornibrook the starting job is if James Blackman plays his way out of that spot. That being said, to me, health is the most important factor. And the fact that you are going to need James Blackman if you hope to beat Wake Forest, if you hope to beat Miami, if you hope to beat Boston College, Syracuse, and even Florida at the end of the season. I think that you start Alex Hornibrook in this game because he is the healthier one of the two, and because he showed you both. I mean, his first pass as a Florida State Seminole was a long touchdown to Keyshawn Helton, and then he led the drive that took what was inevitably the game-winning touchdown and led them down for the touchdown to put them up 11. That gave me the confidence that he can play around this offense and can lead this offense to score enough points that maybe the defense doesn't blow a lead in the fourth quarter this time. So I personally would start Alex Hornibrook, but I do think that if he is somewhat healthy, I would say 80% of what he is, I do think that James Blackman is going to start this game against NC State, unless something changes in the next 2 days before that.
As soon as I find my latest top 25 that I released on Sunday, the top 25 that actually makes sense, I'm going to review that and answer the next question. But meanwhile, Jason, 29 carries for Cam Akers. We talked about it during the entire offseason. And then as the running back position became more depleted, is he going to be able to put up with that kind of wear and tear for 12, 13 plus games?
I think that, and I'm sorry, I'm just looking up. I want to look up his stats for one moment to see what he totally has on yards right now. Okay, so far this season, he has 499 yards. He has 500 yards. So far through 4 games this season, he is only 200 yards shy of what he had all of last season. That's what happens when you give him the ball. Cam Akers is that kind of running back who can carry the ball 29 carries a game and do his work. That's the impressive number so far. And you saw, we talked about this last week, how we need to see Cam Akers more. Excuse me. Sorry. I need Cam Akers to have at least 25 carries against NC State. That needs to be the number. If he has a 20 to 25 carry day, Florida State's chances increase immensely to win the ball game. It's when he only carries the ball 10 times, maybe 12 times a game. He is the best playmaker. He is the best offensive weapon right now on that team. You have to put the ball in your playmaker's hands. That's just football 101. And so the more carries he gets, I am comfortable with that. That being said, I don't want to abuse him against games like Clemson, against games towards the end of the year like Florida, even against a Miami defense that has shown up the last 2 games. Against games like those, I feel like he needs to have better carries. He needs to facilitate himself. In those games, I'm fine with him only carrying it 15 and 20 times as long as he's getting me 6-7 yards a carry there. I think to me is more what I like about Cam Akers so far is that he's getting quality. He's getting 6 yards a carry, 7 yards a carry. He's having those long runs, those big runs. He's scoring touchdowns. He's making more with his time holding on to the ball. So that's what I like more with Cam. So I think he will hold up, but I think it needs to be smarter carries. I'm fine with him having 20, 25 carries, but they have to be smart carries.
So I release a top 25 each and every week in which I say it actually makes sense because it's based on the results on the field and not based on preseason perception, it's not a prediction. So all the time I get littered with comments about, well, Auburn's going to have to play so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so in November. Well, I'm not making the rankings in November. I'm making the rankings right now based on who they played. And then when Team A is number 5 in the country and then they lose a game, then people come back and ridicule me because then they say, well, you should have predicted. Of course, I told you that they weren't number 5. Well, we don't ridicule the AP or the coaches poll when teams drop after they lose. It's not a predictor. Anyway, it's based on what's going on right now.
I ridicule the polls all the time. I'm sorry. I'm the kind of guy who does not believe that there should be polls until probably the first week of October.
Oh, there shouldn't be.
This week. There should not be the poll system because you cannot tell me you could have that. And I'll say this even in the years when Florida State was ranked as a top 10 team and a top 5 team. It is impossible to me to rank rank a school off of what happened 8 months ago. Because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know the upsets that are going to happen week 1. You don't know any injuries that are going to happen and whatnot. To me, you play 3 games, 4 games, and then you get the idea of who is who were the real teams. What happens if Clemson gets somehow blown out this week against North Carolina? Or an Oregon team that loses to Auburn the first game of the year? That's why, to me, those games do not matter. The first month should not matter. It should be probably this week or the first week of October when rankings should come out. And I've said that for years now.
So if the rankings meant anything, I would completely agree with you. I do agree with you that to rank teams after 1 game or 2 games is a bit ridiculous because you're making so many assumptions about how good other teams are. And I clearly state that after 1 game. We'll take Auburn, for example. They beat Oregon. Oregon was expected to be a really good team. Maybe they will be a really good team, but we're making an assumption about how good the win is, and we have to do that, or you can't make any rankings. Now you make less assumptions as the peel comes off the onion each and every week. You don't need to make as many assumptions. The one thing that I also make clear is that I never state that my top 25 is foolproof. This is the exact top 25. If you got to claim that number 10 should be 7 and 6 should be 14, Absolutely. It's there to be debated, but there's logic involved. So I have no issue with Dennis saying you got Virginia 3-0, you got Penn State at 3-0, you've got Virginia ranked 6 spots below Penn State. They had a better win against Pitt. They were more dominant than Penn State was against Pitt, but that's not the entirety of the schedule. Penn State was more dominant in the other 2 games. But I clearly understand the point here, and that I can respect. I can respect, although Virginia did trail by 2 points at half and really turned it on in the second half. Penn State led early and kind of let it lounge their way to a 17-10 win. But clearly, you make the head-to-head comparison. It's logical. Dennis, I can respect your point.
Well, I'll give you an argument using here in the Sunshine State, using the rival Florida Gators. This is a Florida Gators team that started off the season in the top 10, had a sloppy win over Miami in the first game, and now they are without their starting quarterback, Felipe Franks, for the entire season. Would you say right now, Florida, and I get that their backup quarterback had a great game last week against Tennessee, a Tennessee team that is struggling, that's making Florida State look good right now. Shout out to Jeremy Pruitt on that one. But right now, would you say Florida is one of the top 10 teams in the country, especially knowing the fact that in the month of October, they are playing Auburn, at LSU, at South Carolina, and then their first game in November is Georgia. They could easily lose 3 games. 3 of those 4 games were right there, right now. That's why, once again, I think you have to wait to see what's going on. Because, yes, Florida with Felipe Franks at quarterback, 100% a top 10 team. Florida without Felipe Franks in that schedule, to me, is a top 20 team, but definitely not a top 10 team.
Wow, do I have a lot to say about the statements you just made?
Go for
Well,
it.
you don't need to agree with me, Jason, but certainly I challenged one of those points in stating that I don't care if Florida is playing the Packers, the Patriots, the Ravens, and the Chiefs the next 4 weeks. That makes no difference to me. That's not how I rate teams based on who they're going to play.
But
I rate them.
right now, would you say right now, then fine, using right now, ignoring the fact they played Townsend this week, would you say Florida, without Felipe Franks, this Florida team that will be taking the field against Townsend this week, would you rank them as one of the top 10 teams in the country?
Okay, let me make a distinction there. Based on their resume, yes, I have them ranked number 7 in the country right now. They beat a decent Kentucky team, a decent Miami team, and when I use the term decent, I'm saying they're 2 of the top 40 to 45 teams in the country. And they also ripped Tennessee, which is no great source of pride, but they did what they needed to do, 34-3. So the resume to me is number 7 in the country. Let me make a distinction. So I gain all sorts of criticism for this each and every week. So last week I did what people are clamoring for me to do, a number of people, and just state who I believe are the top 25 teams in the country, regardless of resume. And once I went through the entire process, I ranked Florida number 17 in the country. I believe they're, again, not exactly the 17th best team in the country, but right now I have them estimated as the 17th best team in the country. That's where I believe they are as a football team.
And I agree. I think that they are, and we can sit here, and I said this as a graduate of a 2-2 program right now, but I think that Florida right now will end up, by the end of the Georgia game, having 3 losses on their resume. And so that's why I think that, once again, you have to wait for the rankings. You cannot trust those first few weeks of the season because they're deceptive. Hey, Mark. Hey, guys. What's up, Cheryl?
Our guy James here. James is a curious one in that he watches and comments all the time, and I certainly appreciate that. James still has an issue in regards to monitoring my predictions, in which I selected Ohio State to win the Big Ten championship. It's right there on the link. It's in the predictions, for all to see. I cannot run from it. And he's claiming, like every other day, that I've picked Michigan to win the Big Ten championship, and it's just not true. I have the video evidence. Anyway, James commenting right here, and this is what I don't like about the system of college football and the college football playoff, is that you have people like James that maybe just taking a bit of a poke at Florida State's situation right now. But man, if there are teams out there whose seasons are over because they've lost 2 games and they can't get to a college football playoff, then you know what? Shut down college football. I hate this college football playoff or bust mentality, and we can't enjoy college football otherwise.
Well, it's because, I'm sorry, and I'm going to say this as the resident graduate of a Southern university that was a football power at one point, earlier a decade ago or whatnot. The playoff system is a joke. The college football playoff system is a joke. And for all the talk about how the BCS was so flawed, everyone wants to point out the fact that Nebraska played Miami in 2001 because they didn't win the division, and the fact that Auburn was undefeated and didn't win the title in 2004. Okay, so that's 2 years out of 16. I'll take that ratio over split national champions in 1991, over the multitude of split national champions before. The playoff system is a joke because it's created the system where if it's not the two semifinals in the championship game, A, your bowl doesn't matter, and B, like you just said, that when you lose 2 games and you're out of the quote-unquote playoff hunt, your season is over. That's a joke. Florida State has a legitimate shot this season. Let's say they lose to Clemson and win out. They have a shot to play in the Orange Bowl and win a 10-win season. To me, going to the Orange Bowl, I'm not just saying this as a South Florida native and somebody who already has off for that day, but winning the Orange Bowl, even hell, playing the Orange Bowl, and let's say you win the Orange Bowl and win 10 games somehow in the season, to me, a 10-3 season and an Orange Bowl championship is a hell of a season. We sure liked it when Jimbo was here in 2016 and we beat Michigan. What is that? What is wrong with that?
Nothing's wrong with that. So you rallied there at the end, Jason. So what happened was I had so much hope for you at the beginning when you stated about the college football playoff being a joke.
It is. It's control.
It is. I'm right there with you. It's a joke.
It was created by people who either A, have no interest in college football or the history of college football, and they want to say, oh, well, look at the NCAA basketball tournament. Basketball has a tournament. Baseball has a tournament. That's the way that those systems were formatted 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 70 years ago when college football did bowls. Yes, was the system perfect of the bowl systems? Are there plenty of teams who could argue it? Sure, of course. And was there years in the BCS that things could be argued? Of course. Miami still complains that they beat FSU in 2000 and FSU ended up playing Oklahoma. I get it. I'll take those systems over what we have now when you have an Alabama team winning the national title and not even winning their division in 2017. That's what was the final straw for me, that the system's a joke.
Dennis is requesting an SMU weekly broadcast.
Do it.
Hey, Dennis, if I'm paid for it, I will certainly do an SMU weekly podcast as well.
Here you go, 30 seconds. Big win over TCU this week. They wore the solid, I think they wore Dallas helmets. Their stadium's named after a former president, but it's not after the former president, I don't think. Sure, there you go. There's your SMU recap for this week.
Okay. So let's get back to the college football playoff because I need to make a few things clear. So totally agree with you that the college football playoff is a joke because it's a selection process. It's an invitational. It's not an objective playoff system. But it's much better than the BCS.
Why?
It affords 2 more teams that have earned the right to be considered for a national championship the opportunity to prove it on the field. So the only reason it's better than the BCS is that there are always multiple teams that have earned a right on the field to be considered worthy of playing for a national championship. And in the BCS era, we only selected 2. Now we're selecting 4. So it's just inherently better. It's still not good, still not chosen the right way, still flawed, but better. And I personally believe I could go through the history of the BCS and carve through every year and tell you why. Not necessarily that the 2 teams selected weren't the right teams, but that there were other deserving teams that had just as much of a right to play in the championship game.
My comeback to that would be that in the 16 years of the BCS, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, I think there was 3 total seasons where a team didn't win their conference and still played for the national title. I believe it was 2001 when Nebraska didn't even win their own division and got smoked by Miami in the Rose Bowl. It was 2003 when Oklahoma lost to Kansas State, I believe, in the Big 12 championship and lost to LSU. And then in 2011 when Alabama lost to LSU and then played LSU for the national title. So that's 3 times in 16 years. In the 5 years,
there's only 2 spots. You can't even get conference champions into 2 spots.
Hold on, let me finish, please. The 5 years that we've had the playoff system, we've already had it twice where a team hasn't even won their own division and has all of a sudden made the playoffs.
4 spots.
Fine.
You got more conference champions involved.
Right, which means you're trying to turn it into, once again, it's trying to turn it into like a basketball. To me, if you can't even win your own division, then you do not deserve to be in the playoff. That to me would be a rule. I think that the college football playoff should be champions only. Because to me, to be one of the best people, to be one of say you're one of the best 4 teams, you have to have a championship to be on your resume. And I would say this even if it's Florida State. If Florida State was 11-1 and their one loss was to Clemson, I would say Florida State and Florida State did not play in the ACC championship game. I would say Florida State does not deserve to be in the college football playoff, and they could be ranked number 4 nationally. You should have to have your championship, and the fact that we are already 2 out of 5 as opposed to 3 out of 16. We're almost at the same exact number in less than half the time.
No. You cannot make that comparison because you're talking about 2 spots versus 4 spots. So in 16 years, you had 32 spots, and you had 3 times selecting a non-conference champion. The other 29 times, you had a conference champion playing for the national championship.
Correct.
Whereas in 5 seasons, the college football playoff, that would be 20 spots, only twice did you have a non-conference champion. So you had 18 out of 20 times a conference champion was selected in that spot to play for a national championship.
And I think that that's the way it should be. And I'm sorry, I don't think Alabama should have gone in 2017. And I get that Alabama won the title. They beat a very good Georgia team. They should not have been in, and Ohio State should not have been in the 2016 season. It's just not the way it should happen.
James, thank you for hitting the like button.
James, why do you?
And
James,
everyone else.
James looks like Booger McFarland a little bit. Does he not? He's got the nice solid bald head, nice eyebrow. You do look like.
I'm going to leave that one rest.
I'm a huge Booger McFarland. Shout out to Booger McFarland, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How you doing? LSU.
Talking Florida State following the big win against Louisville, 35-24. NC State's on tap. Of course, NC State has been one of the better teams in the ACC in recent years. I believe they kind of missed that window that Ryan Finley, Bradley Chubb, a number of playmakers on offense like, Kelvin Harmon and others, Hines and so forth and so on, where they had a pretty good team, but they would run into Clemson and some others and not get the job done. Now I believe that that window's closed and they're going to be a 7 or 8 win team, it appears, this year. They've already got a bad loss against a West Virginia team. They could barely slip by James Madison and got mauled at Missouri. So I would expect Florida State to win this game. Where are they playing this week?
It's in Tallahassee, 7:30 at night, so hopefully you'll get more than 46,000 people for this one. So far, it looks like we're going to have at least 60,000 so far. So there'll definitely be an upgrade in fans. Weather's supposed to be nice up there. Chop Chat will be heading up there on Friday, so we will be up in Tallahassee, reliving our college years for a weekend. To me, the issue with NC State has, and you hit the nail on the head when you said it. NC State, for about the last 5 years or so, with Clemson's dominance in the ACC, it's been, is this the year NC State can challenge them? Is this the year NC State can challenge Clemson? Is this the year NC State can make some noise? And then, like you said, they finish with an 8-5 season and end up in what used to be the CarQuest Bowl, or whatever, the Belt Bowl, whatever you have now. So this is why it's an important game. It's an important game for both teams. It's an important game for Florida State, obviously, because they have blown their opportunities of losses they shouldn't have lost. Let's be honest here. They shouldn't have lost to Boise State after having a big lead. They shouldn't have lost to Virginia after having a lead in the fourth quarter. So they've blown their horrible losses. So that's why this game is important. They need to win this game to go to 3-2. Let's be honest with ourselves. Right now on paper, they should get smoked by Clemson. So they'll be 3-3, same as they were last year after the first 6 games of the season, with a I wouldn't say much easier, but definitely an easier second half of the season to play. So that's why. But for NC State, this game is also important because they looked like garbage in the second half against West Virginia, and they had a sloppy win against Ball State. If you look at the numbers, you look at the stats, they need to come out into Tallahassee. They've won 2 in a row. They've won the last meeting between the two teams in 2017 in Tallahassee. They need to prove that they are the second team behind Clemson right now in the Atlantic Division. They need a big win. This is going to be the question. You don't have Ryan Finley. You don't have guys like Bradley Chubb on the defense. Do they have the athletes who can play with Florida State right now?
So I'd like to clarify something in regards to the strategy that we have here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. I love college football across the board. I want to cover everything. I want to cover everybody. All you have to do is look at the videos and you get a pretty clear indication of that. I would love to do a Purdue weekly podcast, Kansas, Oregon State, whoever you throw out there. I would love to do it. But yes, Jason, I'm that crazy.
You are. We know that. That's a fact. You also don't sleep.
I don't sleep very much. So let me convey something right here. So there are obviously teams that do much better on my channel than other teams for a number of reasons. That fan base has found me. They're just a better team. They've got a larger fan base. This is obvious. Not all college football programs are created equal. We started to lock in on Miami. I had more Miami followers than anyone else. Miami fans won't want to hear this, but as I've given attention to other programs like Florida State, Ohio State, Clemson, LSU, Michigan, they got 26,000 views on my post-game wrap on Michigan football. Other schools have caught up. So my Miami fans who like to stick out their chest a little bit, and I appreciate the support, need to understand that there are other programs out there that do just as well now on my channel as Miami does, and Florida State being one of them. So I selected Florida State and Ohio State because I only had a 3-hour block on Wednesday nights to do live shows. And so for those of you who have suggested we do Florida and LSU and Michigan and all these other teams, I would love to do it. Fund the channel, fund me, and I will be here every night with 3 or 4 shows, and we will get to your team. But I appreciate James' sentiment right there, Cheryl and some other ones who don't necessarily love Florida State football, but they love college football and they're supporting me. So I appreciate you joining the live chat and listening to Jason, because Jason is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to Florida State football. And please join him on Chop Chat.
Or just be a fan of the Seminoles, a real program.
Or do that.
Or just do that. That's all. Michigan. Let's talk about Michigan. Let's talk Michigan football. Here you go. I think Wisconsin just scored again. Thanks a lot. I was the only guy who picked Michigan on Chop Chat, so I'd like to thank the Wolverines for really showing up on that one. Appreciate it. Good Lord.
You have any thoughts about the recruiting situation right now in Florida? Florida State, Miami, Florida, obviously waging in what is arguably the most talent-rich state in the nation, Jason.
Florida State and Florida have been kind of going back and forth as to which one of the three have been able so far to pull in the highest rated class for 2020. I think that Florida State right now has the ability and has the coaches to be able to come out on top. I will say that once again, it's going to be what happens this season. If Florida has another 10-win season, if they end up going to the New Year's Six bowl game, if they can somehow win the SEC and go to the college football playoff, I think they'll come out on top. But I think right now, if FSU can continue to go in the direction, get a win against NC State, beat Wake Forest, Syracuse, Miami, kind of get on that upward slide, then I think that FSU will come out with the top class. By the way, I'd like to put on George the Gator. Actually, we said Harbaugh was worse than Taggart. Nice, I like that. I don't understand.
Just last week.
But I don't understand. Jim Harbaugh is a coach who should be on the hot seat. Jim Harbaugh, I will say this, and nothing against Michigan. I rooted for them when they played Florida. To me, you have to start to put him on the hot seat, because it's one thing to beat teams like Northwestern. It's one thing to beat teams like Indiana, Illinois, but you can't keep finishing 8-4, 9-3, and expect just because you went there and just because you were quarterback there. I think that the seat has to start to warm until he wins one of these big games. He needs to beat an Ohio State, beat a Wisconsin, do something like that.
I've been a bit pro Harbaugh for most of this time, but it's becoming more and more difficult to do so. He took over a team that went 5-7 that was winning about 55% of its games over the previous 8 to 10 years. So he certainly has upgraded the program. The recruiting has been much better. He's got a top 10 roster, and he's beaten all the teams that he's supposed to beat. But yes, now comes the crossroads. I certainly thought after what happened to him and the team last year, in starting 10-1, having the most dominant defense in the country through 11 games, and then just completely falling on their face as a favorite against Ohio State, as a team that beat all the teams Ohio State beat, but performed in those games much better than Ohio State. So there was reason to believe, there was evidence. There was like a 6-game overlap of evidence to say Michigan's crushing Nebraska 56-10. Ohio State barely beat them in the last few minutes of the game, and on, that Michigan must be a better team. Boom, they get smacked again. And now this season, I was thinking that this was going to be the season, Jason, that even if he failed And by failure, I meant 10-2, 9-3, lose to Ohio State, not win the Big Ten championship again. That would set him up for a, regardless of what you do this year, Jimmy, in 2020, you got to win the big game. You got to beat Ohio State. You got to get to that Big Ten championship game. But I did not anticipate, and 35-14 doesn't do it justice. Wisconsin just ran over it wasn't a 35-14 game. It was 35-0. They just called off the dogs. It was just an annihilation. I did not anticipate Michigan being this bad. They would have lost to Army had the Army freshman field goal kicker, who had never attempted a collegiate kick, made a kick at the end of regulation. They could be 1-2 right now with a loss to Army. If they don't rally quickly, I do agree this could be the end. I don't know that the Michigan administration is going to pull the trigger this year, but I think a lot of people would. And I certainly would set him up for a must-win big in 2020.
No, he can't get fired now, even if they lose to Ohio State. I think he has to finish. I'd probably say he can't finish with lower than 8 wins. I will say that. If they finish lower than 8-4, then he should be fired immediately. If it's anywhere in the 8-4, 9-3 category, you give him 1 more year. And then if it's back to the same, it's the same old, same old. You just can't have that. I do like the fact that you're ripping out another coach that's not named Willie Taggart. I mean, I do appreciate that. It's very nice. The fifth.
Well, we could survey the nation. I could find a few more, I'm sure.
ACC coach, that's all.
What's your evaluation currently of the Florida State wide receiver core, which was led by Keyshawn Helton with 7 catches, 96 yards, and a touchdown this past weekend?
I like the way Keyshawn Helton has shown up. I do like the fact that Tamarian Terry with a big touchdown. Obviously, they gave FSU the lead. I like seeing him. I like DJ Matthews, the fact that he grew up and he played. He had a big catch on a long, I believe, the second 20 or third and 20. That basically kept that drive going and set up that touchdown to Terry. So I like the fact that these guys are playing more physical. You see the Ron Dugan's coaching has started to work a little bit. So I like what I'm seeing out of them. I just want to I want to see them play the same way if Alex Hornibrook does start, that they play the same way that they've been playing for James Blackman. I think that if they do, then things will be okay.
Navy Thomas had asked, when is the last time that Florida State and Notre Dame played? They just played last season in South Bend. We won't mention the score. It was something like 44-13, something like that.
Yeah,
J-Jobs, no playoff system is 100% fair unless every team gets in.
And this is the problem. The other problem with the playoff system, and I've said this before, no one's going to be satisfied because even before the first playoff was held with 4 teams, the argument was, it should be 8 teams. Let's say it goes to an 8-team system when the system gets revamped. The first argument is going to be, it should go to 16 teams. That's the way it's going to go. I don't think it should go that way, but that's the argument you're going to have from the critics.
That's not the argument I'll make.
That's not the argument you'll make, but you have common sense. I'm talking about the people who call into sports radio shows and blogs and do everything like that. I'm talking about the people, the average, the keyboard warriors who root for Florida State, Florida, Miami, every team, whatnot. The problem is you're going to run into a situation where, let's say you have a 9-4 Georgia Tech and a 8-5 Kansas who just have a great playoff run. Somehow they win the right games, make it to the playoffs somehow, some way, and end up going. People will complain, this championship sucks. It's the same way in the NCAA tournament. Everyone loves the 15 seed in the basketball tournament. They love the 15 seed to win the first round. They love the 15 seed to make it to the Sweet 16. But the second the 15 seed ruins their money and ruins their chance of Duke playing Kentucky for the national title, they hate the number 15 seed. People want Alabama, Clemson. They want Ohio State and Florida State. They want, they even want Oregon and Ohio State and whatnot. Everyone loves the story of a playoff and everyone wants to be involved until it comes down to the championship. And then they want the same old, same old.
Jay Jobs, we appreciate the contribution. Jay Jobs is always with us here in the live chat, has a number of comments to make. We appreciate the support, but I will point something out here, Jay Jobs. Absolutely. No playoff system is 100% fair because for it to be 100% fair, everyone would have to play everybody in the league an equal number of times for it to be exactly fair. But you understand that playoff systems in the NBA, Major League Baseball, and the NFL are like 98% fair. The schedule is systematic, first of all, because the schedule is the most important component in addition to the team's own talent and player development and capability of the coaching. The schedule is the biggest component in producing equality. towards a playoff. And at least in the NFL, Major League Baseball, and the NBA, there's a system to it. There aren't just teams running around scheduling their own games. That creates such inequity in scheduling, number one. Number two, the point that I make about expanding from 4 to 8 teams is, yes, certain people will argue, well, number 9's really good. They're just as good as 8. That's not my concern. My concern in this is that every conference is represented. And once you get to 8 teams, you can then you can represent every conference, and you don't leave out a conference. Therefore, nobody can say, hey, we didn't get a chance. You know what? You finished second place in the Pac-12. You should have finished in first place. You did have the opportunity to make the playoffs because we have a spot for all the conference champions, therefore all the conferences.
I mean, I'm just sad that UCF is not going to be able to defend their fake back-to-back national championships from 2017 and 2018 after their heartbreaking loss to Pittsburgh, a ACC school, by the way. Just shout out to the ACC Coastal Division on that one. That was a shout out to all the UCF people down here who've been talking for the last 2 years about how great UCF is and how awesome UCF is when they've won their conference and whatnot, and when they play bad teams. And then they got beat by a bad ACC team. That's all.
Logan's joining us tonight, getting in a few jabs.
Would love to talk basketball. Yes. Can we do a basketball chat? Basketball season?
You're on your own.
Oh, damn. Okay. So no coincidence the SEC star waiting until us after the Christian League School. Oh, 100%. And we said that before. The SEC was a non-championship conference from about 1980 to the mid-90s. And then Florida won it in 96. Tennessee won it in 98. Florida won it again in 06. And then started that whole BCS era right there. But, oh, yeah, before that it was Big 10 country, Big 12 country, Big 8, ACC, FSU with 2 titles. Yeah.
And we were also voting for the national champion at the conclusion of the season. So, James, you make an interesting point. I think you have some validity in what you say, because I point this out to SEC lovers all the time, is that it's difficult not to win national championships when your conference is being selected to play in the game every year and the other conferences are not. So between 1998 and the end of the BCS era, there was a SEC team selected 8 or 9 consecutive years during that one stretch in there. So yes, to credit the SEC, they took advantage of the situation. They took advantage of the selection, and they won the championship games. When their teams were placed in the championship game, they won it. However, if you're going to be selected each and every year and take a span of years, I can go through every championship game and tell you who was selected, but who also was left on the sideline who had just as good a resume to be selected. And when your team or conference is not selected, let me clue you in on something. When your team or conference isn't selected, they have no chance of winning the championship. They can't. They're automatically eliminated. They don't even have a chance.
Let's say this. The SEC only had, in the first 8 years of the BCS, the first half, the SEC only had 2 teams make it to that championship game. Tennessee in the inaugural season that beat FSU, and then LSU that beat Oklahoma in 2003. And the only other team that you could probably argue could have had a shot is Auburn in 2004, but I think that USC team was going to smoke Oklahoma, Auburn, whoever they played on that one. It was the second half. It was when you added that +1, added a BCS championship game, added the extra game to it, added 2 more teams that got into the quote-unquote BCS, that all of a sudden the SEC's dominance begun. Because you saw that was when the 7-year run of championships that was ended by, what team was that? Oh, Florida State ended that one in 2013. So it was all of a sudden that second half.
I actually think Auburn might have ended it by beating Alabama with that kick 6. That might have ended the SEC's run.
I'm sorry. You can call it being biased or whatnot. We can have a whole next week during the bye week. We can talk about this completely. That 2013 FSU team would have beat that Alabama team. They'd beat, just like they beat that Auburn team. They would have beat any team. That was the best team in college football history. Sorry. ACC Network, not coming to Comcast, so I'm not a luck at my house. But make sure this week, if you're not going to be in Tallahassee, number one, this is my plea. I'm heading up there. I'm heading up there from South Florida on Friday. If you can make it to the game at 7:30, get there. The team feeds off of your support. If we can get 70,000 people in there, trust me, it is 70,000, 80,000 people inside Doak for a night game. Everyone doing the chop. That's what we need right there. We need the team needs you by them. If you can't and you don't have ACC network, somehow figure out a way to watch that game.
Dennis is indirectly complimenting me there. The ACC network better run than the Big Ten network. The ACC network owned by not me personally, but yes. So I will take the indirect compliment there, Dennis. Thank you.
I've tried watching it. I'm sorry. I'm going to be glad I'm at the game. I can't listen to Mark Richt talk about things from 1990 FSU and Georgia, a team that didn't win anything when he was there. I'm just saying. I can't.
Logan reminds us, like the video. This is what we do each and every day is cover college football like nobody's business online. Best discussion, debate, and analysis.
How is Logan watching us if he doesn't have a laptop?
His phone?
We need to investigate this. Logan, why are you not here? I'm waiting for the answer.
We talk Florida State football each and every Wednesday night with Jason Parker and typically with Logan Robinson of Knoll Game Day. Please join their respective sites there at Chop Chat and also Knoll Game Day. And
do I get his
don't
money?
hog all this fine entertainment and football analysis yourself. Bring along your family, your friends, your loved ones, your social media acquaintances to join us here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. And if you have yet to subscribe, check out the videos. See if we don't cover college football at a rate that nobody else does.
Do I get Logan's pay this week or not? Do I get both of our paychecks?
You get to make two predictions?
No, I'm saying, do I get both of our paychecks this week? Do I get Logan's money and
the paychecks? Yes, of course you get Logan's paycheck. Absolutely.
I get two checks of nothing. Got it. Okay.
He's not earning his paycheck on the weeks that he's here.
Wow, shots fired. I like it.
So before we leave, we're going to have Jason give us his prediction on the NC State game. Also want to remind everyone that we're looking for a sponsor.
Popeyes.
I understand, Jason, in my research on YouTube that at 5,000 subscribers, you should easily expect sponsorship.
Popeyes.
I'm pushing 14,000 subscribers here, 17,000 total. We should have a sponsor here. So if anybody out there owns a business
Popeyes
that is in any way can be related to sports or college football, let's say you sell college football gear, that's an obvious fit. But anything that you do, if you would like to sponsor Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, or this show in particular, please reach out to me at MarkRogersTV at Gmail because we should have sponsors here.
Popeyes.
All right, Jason, look into the crystal ball. You've got a date against NC State.
We do, and I hate playing NC State. I hate playing NC State, especially in Raleigh. Thank God this game's in Tallahassee. There's a fine line, and we talked about it a little bit. We joked about it earlier. There's a fine line with being happy the way the fourth quarter turned out against Louisville, and also being, for lack of a better term, pissed off that yet it was another blown lead. So that's kind of the balancing act for FSU this week, is not getting too cocky about a win over Louisville when you're looking forward, and you're going to play an NC State team who is a better team. I think that it's going to be a shootout, which on paper does not bode well for FSU because the defense has not shown to me that they can stop a shootout. They did handle Louisville in the fourth quarter, and they were able to shut them down, but I don't know how much that was Louisville with a backup quarterback or that was FSU's defense finally growing up and being the FSU defense we know they can have. I do think James Blackman does start the game. I could be wrong. Alex Hornibrook could end up being the starter, but either way, I think that FSU, I'm going to ride the horse. His name is Osceola. I did pick NC State in the preseason. I thought this would be the one game FSU would lose before Clemson. But I do think Florida State does pull out a close win. I'm going to say 38-34 Florida State.
NC State, led by quarterback Matthew McKay, highly touted coming out of high school, of course, replacing Ryan Finley, who started a zillion games there. 3 touchdowns, 1 pick for him, 58% completion percentage. Donovan Knight, leading rusher at 5.7 per carry and 3 touchdowns. Also, Florida State fans, you want to look out for Amika Amizi, who's got 25 balls for 252 and has yet to reach the end zone. NC State with a disappointing loss a couple of weeks back to West Virginia by 17. As you can see on the screen, my weekly predictions are found at the Voice of College Football Community. Just check out the link in any of the description sections of any of the videos.
You don't want to pick FSU now? You don't want to give it? Don't want to give a little appetizer?
I haven't wanted to pick FSU the entire season, and rightfully so.
Did you pick us to beat Louisville?
I did not predict that game, in all honesty. It was not on my radar.
It's not that I'm mad, just disappointed.
You have to make the top 25 to guarantee that you're going to be on the selection list of Mark Rogers TV, Voice of College Football predictions for the week.
So we'll see you in November.
I hope so. I think more people are going to watch with FSU winning. So I hope so. Jason, I appreciate you so much, in all seriousness, for being the guy coming on here 18 consecutive weeks to talk Florida State football. We miss Logan. We miss him dearly. We hope to have him back next week. But Jason's been here each and every week and carrying the load. If
I need to bring him a laptop from South Florida, I will do that. So we will somehow get him back online next week. I think he can figure out some way to get on. So we'll figure that out.
All right, everyone. You will see me in 5 minutes talking Miami football with Cam Underwood from State of the U right here at Mark Rogers TV, the Voice of College Football. Meanwhile, I don't know. Spend your money.
Yeah.
We will see you soon. See you, Jason.
Later, bud.